How you end one season determines how you begin the next. You've got to start giving yourself new ideas, fresh ideas. If we're going to grow from where we're at, we have to take this opportunity to expand our knowledge.
Welcome back to Life Worth Chasing. I'm your host, Chase Maher, and this show is about helping entrepreneurs build their business around their dream lifestyle. So my guest today brings an entirely unexpected perspective on the future of work, talent, and the power of doing work that matters. He is the director of the Millennial and Employee Engagement Institute. He consults and speaks with organizations on how unleashing their human potential increases engagement, innovation, and a more meaningful life. His latest book, 5 Days to Your Best Work Yet, explores the question, is there a human-like approach to better work? My guest today is Josh Schneider. Josh, welcome to the show, brother.
Chase, excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you. And just to sort of set the stage, I started this podcast. I didn't even know what New and Noteworthy was. I didn't know that people were going to be reaching out to me, asking to be on my show. I didn't know about any of this stuff. And so a week after I launched, I started getting a couple emails a day. And almost every email was this super templated, mass cold email, a lot of times done by some PR team that has never listened to me or knows who I am. But your email stuck out to me because you clearly listened to a couple of the episodes. You added value in your email to me. You were respectful. You were nice. You were humble. And then I checked out some of your stuff, some of your YouTube. I checked out a little bit about your book, which we're going to get into. And I was like, dude, you know what? I'm going to have this guy on. He's pretty cool. And I'm excited to talk to you, man. And I'm excited to really learn about you. I kept it very minimal in my knowledge of you so that we could really dive into true curiosity. And that's what we were just talking about before the call. So I'm excited to chat about all that, man.
Well, thank you. I'm obsessed about human beings and being able to add value to the world. So if you're going to connect with another human being, take an extra 20 minutes and find a way to win with that person. And even if you had said no, guess what? I'm coming back every 3 months and eventually you're going to say yes.
Hey man, I love it, dude. I'm in sales and fortune is in the follow-up. And I truly believe that in our line of work and what we do when it comes to adding value and a creative space and truly helping others, it's quality over quantity. And so I would imagine that maybe now, I'm not sure where your business is at now, but I would imagine that you focus on quality outreach rather than just doing 1,000 cold emails a day, right?
Yeah. There was a time when my friend was like, hey, I built this Excel tool that scrapes LinkedIn and we can send thousands of emails a day. And so I started to use it with zero impact and, all this frenetic motion. And now, thankfully, the business has scaled to a point where I'm I need more people on the team, but it's all about quality. And it's how do I get these few things going so well? And I'm excited to share a little bit because it's easy to say when you're kind of on the other side. And I have in no way reached, there's projects that scare the heck out of me that are in my mind. And so it's going to be this frenetic push again, but how do you find that quality in the midst of doing work fast and well?
Awesome, man. So before I want to spend a little bit of time on how you got to where you're at now, but just to sort of catch me up to speed and catch the listeners up to speed so they know who the heck this guy is and how he can help them. Because let's be honest, unless it's Joe Rogan or some straight entertainment, most people are just trying to get some sort of help from a podcast. So who are you and what are you doing now and how are you impacting others?
Yeah, the whole reason why I do what I do is it was October 1st, 2009, and I walked into my first day as an auditor at a CPA firm. And I thought 10 days from today, I'm going to make partner, whatever it takes. And probably 25 minutes later, I was thinking, what on earth am I doing here? And I knew I had the commitment because it took me 5 years to get a 4-year college degree. So I knew that hey, whatever the timeline, I'm going to make it work. And I stayed there for a couple of years. And at that point, the greatest burden that I feel every day was birthed inside of me. And that's people hating their job. And like work is work, but hating your job is something different. Going home with stress or having to work long hours is different than hating your job. And so after a couple of years, I switched into a different role, operations management. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And as a result of that, people saw this change. I mean, literally when Saturday afternoon at 3:00 was when I knew Monday morning was coming. So I had Friday evening and a little bit of Saturday when I was working at the CPA firm where I didn't have this overwhelming feeling of my life sucks. And it's a horrible way to live. And so now, I mean, almost 10 years in as an entrepreneur and, you know, a long journey. People say, how'd you make it? And I just show them my teeth, which I feel like a dentist would say needs a lot of work. And I'm like, they just got kicked in enough times. And one time I heard Grant Cardone say, you don't have to be the best. You just have to be the last one standing. And I thought, well, I can keep moving amongst all obstacles. So, you know, that's kind of how I've arrived here. And my burden is to help people love their work and not hold your breath to get to 65, because there is too much. The world needs more from us than us just holding our breath, waiting to get retirement and hope that somehow we make it out on the other end.
I love that, man. I really love that. I love how you brought up the Grant Cardone quote, because I hear that quote all the time. And like, there seems to be, I don't know, I was at an event a couple weeks ago. I was speaking at a buddy's event, and the keynote speaker, a lot of his promo, and no fault to him whatsoever, but a lot of his promo is about like how much his company has sold in the 3 years of existence. We're like listening to him talk. It was like 50 million in 3 years. It was crazy. We're like listening to him talk. And my buddy and I were like, after hearing his story, we're like, dude, he's been doing this for 11 years. The same exact niche for 11 years, but this new company, the brand name has only been around 3 years. And I think a lot of that goes unnoticed, where people see this quote unquote overnight success, but they don't understand like the dude or the lady behind it has been in the training ground for like a decade plus. And I really want to get into like your whole thought on like jobs and careers, but there seems to be this like thing out there right now that's like, you either keep your job and have a side project, or you dump your job right away and you go be an entrepreneur. So like, talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on that and like where you stand and like your kind of brand name, like what's the position on that?
You know, I love it because I don't get to talk about this all the time, because a lot of times it's organizations that are bringing me in to talk to their people. And fundamentally, I believe that people should find a job that really works for them, because that guy you heard speak, 8 years, it took him 11 minus the 3 is 8 years to dial in that niche. Those were probably 8 difficult years. And so, number one, I think that there is an incredible job out there for everybody. However, money and limitation can sometimes come into play. And so, do you want to take the jump? Maybe you do. And maybe it excites you. I remember when I left the CPA firm and I knew that I wanted to jump when I was working in operations, and I was loving my work, but I just knew that there was something pulling me. And I think one of the big questions we have to ask ourselves is, am I running away from something, or am I running to something? So many people are like, screw this job, or, oh, I've got that pesky day job. And when I hear that, my spine pricks up, because I think you've already given up on this season of life, and you think that you're going to bring the tenacity to the next season. And sure, there's somebody that can prove me wrong, but you got to run to something. I mean, when I stepped into what I'm doing right now, and I will still say this, like if I'm 72, by the time I reach the pinnacle, I pray to God I'm not 72 by the time some of the dreams that I have come into fruition, or I'm living in that. But if it takes me from now till 72 to arrive, which that's a whole nother, the idea of arriving is a whole nother thing, but okay, I'm in. And we're in a beautiful, beautiful world where you can have a day job and it could pull at you, but you could begin to write content for 2 years, for 3 years. I mean, I don't want to open it up, but I truly believe that so many people don't necessarily grow where they're planted, and they run away from where they are, when there's like, how you end one season determines how you begin the next. And I love entrepreneurship. It's so beautiful, but it can be a grind, and it can push you past. Are you willing to risk? I've got a wife and 3 kids, and I feel blessed to live in the home that we live in right now. I feel blessed that, my wife surprised me with tickets to a concert that I didn't even know was in town last night. One of my favorite bands. Like, that's how heads down I am. And my favorite, you can make fun of me, but Dave Matthews Band, I've seen them all around the country. And my wife like texted me midday and she's like, your friend and you are going. And I'm not worried about that $400 on those tickets. But there was a day I was so stressed. I was trying to go to get a breakfast sandwich, and I didn't have the $2.12, and I was $100,000 in debt because I was going after something. And you got to be willing to walk that path and see some parts of you and see who true people are in your life to be willing to come back from that.
I love that, man. That gave me chills talking when you were just talking about how you don't have to stress about the $400 ticket right now, but there was a time where you couldn't even afford a breakfast sandwich. I know that feeling, man. And I want to talk about the training ground portion, because this is something that's like really been on my mind the last few weeks. And I love that you brought up, am I running away from something or am I running to something? Almost every like highly successful person I talk to, there's a common denominator that they always say, no matter where you're at right now, be the best at it. Because being the best at it is going to open the door to the next thing and to the next thing and to the next thing. And like high level opportunities rarely attract people that hate where they're at. They usually attract people that are happy and very successful where they're at, but just show them like, hey, there's an even better opportunity out there. And you keep following this like path of success rather than this path of like hate and frustration. So let's say like, who is like your ideal audience when somebody's reading your book? Is it somebody that doesn't like where they're at and you're trying to get them to find something that they like to do? Or is it somebody that likes what they're doing, but you want them to like open the door to a side hustle that could turn into their dream, business? Like, who are you really going after?
I think the core of what I'm trying to go after is helping either individual create a healthy soil where they're currently planted. And if you hate what you do, it's a pretty toxic environment to then snap out of that when you get home. And build in on this next level and momentum. And that's, a human-like approach to better work. It's a beautiful thing that millennials have done to the workforce, because we are more integrated now as a human at work and our home life or our personal life at work. And it's changed, it's disrupted the way of how work has been. But I want you, in 5 days to your best work yet is about identifying what you do best. And something in particular that I talk about, what's your tingly feeling? And the tingly feeling has everything to do with, it was actually when I was working at the CPA firm, one of the girls that I worked with, it was her and I out at a client. It was like 8:00 at night on a Wednesday. And she looks up at me with this glimmer in her eye. And she's like, Josh, I've got a tingly feeling. I'm like, wait, what? And she's like, I've got a tingly feeling because the numbers match. And my gut reaction is I get ticked off when the numbers match. And Jen was so clear on what part of her work brought excitement and joy. And, now a lot of the study that I do is around this idea of the employee brain. And what we now know happened in Jen is when she had that tingly feeling, meaning a part of her real work happened, there was a release of this oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine in her brain that flooded her body, creating feel-good chemicals, which inspired her and encouraged, like she literally felt different as a result of doing this part of her work. And so you said the training ground. The training ground is not sexy. So the training ground could be as an auditor at a CPA firm, finding out. I mean, to this day, my ability to go deep into Excel spreadsheets with hatred level at 100%, but find out and do the work that I need to do is still there, and I can access it. I call it the job before the job. And when I was working at the CPA firm, or pardon me, when I was trying to build this business, I had to serve at a restaurant and fine dining. And so I would have tables of businessmen. Now, granted, there was already some speaking engagements or some trainings that I would be doing. And I've got a table of 8 businessmen. And now I, as a server, need to conduct and give the specials and get the table and get the experience started. You better believe that I viewed every approach to that table as me stepping in front of an executive boardroom about to command the attention and dictate how things were going to go. And there was times that I failed, or there was times that I had to learn the difference between a German client, a Japanese client. Anyways, the training ground is where you are at. And how do you convince yourself of that? You have one of 2 choices. Les Brown always shared the story of a bamboo tree. And he would say, if you plant a bamboo tree, you go out and you water that thing every day for 5 years and you see 0 growth. In that 5th year, that bamboo tree can shoot up 60, 70 feet in the air in just as little as 90 days. The training ground is not sexy. It's not sexy to go water the dirt. Your neighbor's looking out the window thinking, Chase, what are you doing? You're standing there with the hose, just watering the dirt. Nothing's happening. But when you're in that training ground and you are willing to find the tingly feeling where you're at, you're willing to say, this is my job before my next job. What can I do differently? How can I take this moment and get practice to prepare me for the next thing?
So how does somebody know if they're in the right or wrong training ground? And let me define, in my opinion, what the right or wrong training ground is. So I don't know if you've heard my episode on like recession-proof skill sets that have the least chance of being automated. So like sales and communications positions in terms of like high-level sales, speaking engagements, motivational speaking, podcasting. Then there's like technical work, like coding, engineering, construction, things like that, where they're like very technical, specific skill sets. And then the last one is like creative work. So video production, music production, those are sort of the 3. And I got this from Naval, by the way. I definitely didn't come up with this, but I got this from Naval, and he was talking about how it's kind of a blend of what I call the training ground and what he was talking about, that you want to be building a unique skill set in one of those fields within your training ground. So if you have a job and down the road, eventually you want to, own a software company, then your training ground, and you want to be the head coder there, then your training ground should probably be coding for a high-level software company. If you want to be a world traveling DJ, then you should probably be interning for a DJ rather than bussing tables, for example. No, nothing against bussing tables whatsoever. I've done that before. But that's what I'm talking about. Like the job before the job, wouldn't you agree that it should sort of like parlay to the next job, and there should be like some congruence there, right? So how do people figure that out? How do they figure out, like you said you want to help people figure out what they're good at? Like break that down for me. How do people find that out?
So I love that. And I think the word that I use is proximity, right? If you want to be a DJ, you might have to still bus tables, but you should find somebody. I don't care if you've got to go be a barback at a club. Like last night I'm at this concert. Exactly. I'm at this concert last night, and I can put myself in the mind of Dave Matthews on that stage when the crowd is cheering. and I can reverse it and I can see myself as him, because I love that feeling of being on the stage. And, you know, in a reasonable time frame, it's hard to answer that question directly without knowing maybe somebody's scenario. And that's where I just brought up that idea of the tingly feeling. But what we've seen is that tingly feeling happens as little as 4% of our working week. That apex moment, the thing that when we do it, we are so on fire, so engaged, so excited. And so I believe step number one is to try and find out what that tingly feeling is. You take me all the way back to even before I graduated college. I actually started off going to college as a nurse, and I thought, hey, this is great. And very quickly decided I didn't want to do this. Then I went into finance, and then I went into business, and then ultimately chose accounting. And the reason, it's laughable to say, well, what about nursing? Like, wasn't there red alarms saying this is not for you? That's true once I saw the practicality of the work, but the heartbeat behind it was to help people. I looked at finance, and in my immaturity, I thought that being a financial advisor was the only way to be in finance, but the heartbeat behind it was to help people. Once I got in accounting, I thought, well, what better way to help a business than to help them understand their accounting, and we can make a decision. Once again, some immaturity, but the heartbeat behind it was helping people. And so there is absolutely a tingly feeling for everybody. You are a human being. It is human nature to love what you do. And if you could take 2 weeks and scan your schedule and find out something is it when you hit send on an email? Is it, I was with a guy a couple months ago, and we're looking at his computer, and he goes, Josh, the spreadsheet tells a story. I'm like, no, sir, it does not. He's like, it does. Like, that was his tingly feeling. And so begin to pull on that thread. And so I think that is one of the biggest pieces. As far as like, you want to talk about, to me, real entrepreneurial is, I don't care what you love to do. What's the problem that you're going to solve? And so if you truly want to step into being an entrepreneur, like, yes, you got to be in it for the long game, but I guarantee you that my teeth didn't have to get kicked in so many times I care so much about purpose, but you will never hear me talk about the word purpose, because purpose is not a problem that corporations are trying to solve for their people. Engagement, meaningful work, productivity, innovation, creativity. These are problems companies are trying to solve for their people. I'm in delivering a message of how we live a life that fulfills us, but I'm tying it into the pain points. So what are those pain points? And what are you hearing from me that we want to go deeper on?
Yeah, man. Well, I love like the tingling feeling. I'm starting to understand like sort of how you're thinking and what you're getting after. And pulling that thread. I love that like phrase, because I can like imagine in my head me, like a younger me. I grew up on the car dealership. I was selling cars, I was buying cars. But the thing I loved the most was like negotiating deals, buying low and selling high. That's like what jacked me up. I just loved it. I could care less about the people and how much they love their car. I could care less about how much work we had to do to the car. I just wanted to see a profit. And when I got into real estate here in San Diego, I started working with investors and I loved it, but I saw a problem in the retail agent space. And so I got my license, and fast forward 3 years of doing really well with it, I realized that tingly feeling was like to that 4% of the work week kind of stuff. And I'm like, dude, what am I doing? I'm not going after what I love to do. So I started focusing just on the investment side of the business. And now like I'm the happiest I've been. And now I'm doing this podcast. It's amazing. So I challenge people, like, find that tingly feeling, pull that thread like Josh is saying. And it's okay if it takes years to keep pulling it, but just don't let it go. Don't give up on it. You talked about entrepreneurship. And I agree with you. I think that there's two sides to being a really high level entrepreneur. One is solving a high level problem, and that's like your consumer facing entrepreneurship. Like, what are you doing for the market? You're solving that problem. What I've learned as I'm growing a team is the number one most important part of my day is putting talent in a position to succeed. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm helping my team figure out what's that tingly feeling, grabbing that thread for them, giving it to them, and letting them focus on that. So I'll give you an example. All right. I got a guy on my team. I'm not going to mention any names. And I put him in a position that for 6 months, he was doing okay, but it was a position that I excel at. And I was sort of doing a position that I didn't really excel at. So I called an audible one day. I was like, you know what, man, audible. I think you're way better at what I'm doing. I'm way better at what you're doing. Let's switch. Let's see how it goes. And dude, this thing has taken off like a rocket ship in the last couple of months. And he's so excited every day. I'm so excited every single day. And it's just so cool that all we did was just switch threads and realize we were not doing what fires ourselves up. And so I want to discuss, like, I think there's some people out there that are listening and they're thinking, okay, I know what fires me up. How can I do more of it? I'm in a dead end job that I don't like. I want to run away from what I hate and I want to go to what I love. Like, can you help that person through that process and sort of like how they should have patience, how they should plan that so that they can fall in love with that training ground and that job before the job?
Yeah, I think, and I love that, because when you're to what you just said real quick, so many people think they are broken. And when something's not working, like it does not matter how hard. I think what creates frustration in the human psyche and the human nature is when you get in your car and you push down that gas, the car responds to an equal or greater measure. And when we apply effort and energy and focus at work, and our return is less than our effort, and you compound that day after day after day, we get very frustrated. And when we get frustrated, we think the problem's with us or the company we work with. We start to think something is really going on with us, and we end up so frustrated when in fact we're probably just a little bit out of alignment. I did a program with Bridgestone Tire a couple of years ago, and they were like, the whole program was about alignment, but alignment with what we do best and how we do it. And they were just, afterwards they were loving it, because they're like, Josh, we try and spend all day convincing people of how important alignment in a vehicle is, and how just 1 or 2 degrees off can begin to not only break down the tire and the wheel, but can truly break down the whole vehicle. And so to that point of just how important being in alignment is, when you're not necessarily broken, you might just be 1 or 2 degrees off play. So I think
hang that. I want to say something real quick. I love how you brought up alignment. I don't mean to interrupt you, but do you know who Thach Nguyen is? Thach Nguyen. It's like Nguyen, Thach. Anybody listening, check him out if you are really liking what Josh is saying. He's on Instagram. He's a real estate investor. His name's Thach Nguyen. He has like his clothing brand that he sells some shirts of. But one of his things, check this out, Josh, you're going to love this. It has the word grind. Grind is crossed out and it says aligned, align. And he's always saying like, dude, quit grinding, get aligned. And
yes,
you won't feel like you're grinding anymore. And I think that it's easier said than done, but I want to dive in even further on that. And I just wanted to mention that real quick before I forgot, but like, let's dive in further. What were you doing in that program that was helping these people align? Like, what can we share with the listeners now that helps them get more and more aligned?
So, what I shared in that program was maybe unique to those situations with a bunch of engineers, but, how can somebody, I think your first question was like, how can somebody take this proving ground where they're at, right? And what can they do in a relatively subpar, in a crappy situation? And I don't, to be honest, I don't know. But what I do know is there is a way forward. And what I did, which is just grind it out, when I was at the CPA firm, I read 100 books. Why? Reading 100 books, and you don't have to read 100 books. You can get an Audible book for free, and you can read that one book over and over and over again. What you need to do is the train is moving in a direction, and you need to stop the train from moving in that direction, and then you need to get it moving in a positive direction. So, I don't think that, yes, for what I'm about to say, there is an example of somebody who has jumped ship, somebody who said, screw you. My uncle was in a job, got a new manager. The relationship with the manager was so bad, my uncle actually went on basically mental health medical leave, started up an Amazon business in the back hills of North Carolina. 2 years in, earning a quarter million a year. And so for when I share that to managers, I say, don't you be that manager who makes somebody run so hard in the opposite direction. But when you're in that proving ground, you've got to start giving yourself new ideas, fresh ideas, because where you're at, I can't sit here and say, do this, do this, do this. I don't know. I mean, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Sure. And I know I'm getting a little frenetic because I'm getting excited, but if we're going to grow from where we're at, we have to take this opportunity to expand our knowledge. And in most, it sounds silly. The first time I heard about strengths and weaknesses, my mind it exploded. I'm like, wait, there's some things that I do really well, and there's some things that I don't. And for $15, I can take a Gallup StrengthsFinder assessment and get some insight on who I am. And so I think that's number one. Read some books, find it. But number two, you've got to play the long game. Years ago, before I was making any money in my business, I spent 35 hours researching what the best lavalier microphone was. And I spent $500 on a lavalier microphone that I barely used. I still have it to this day. And I think when so many people are starting out or looking, or they're questioning, the mind quenches knowledge, and you have to push aside these distractions of, now if I needed a lavalier microphone, I would say to Lee on my team, spend 30 minutes looking on Amazon, reading reviews, and whatever one you think is the best, send me the top two, and I'm going to look at it, and we're going to be done with this thing in no time. And in that, I think that guy you're referring to earlier, 11 years in, it takes 11 years to begin to develop that tenacity, that to know what, I mean, there's 100 things you could do on a given day. And so all the way back to in that beginning, you have to not waste time on the wrong things. And alignment is tough to step into. I feel like I'm being so unencouraging, but here's the reality with alignment is that when you can find out what that tingly feeling is, and I'm actually, I'll give away a PDF version of the book to anyone who wants, because it's what we've seen with the employee brain is this idea of a compass. And I feel like when we say, like, do what you're passionate about, it's so hard to know whether you can truly make a living at what you're passionate about. But there's a branch of it. Like you said, I started in retail. I knew I wanted to make a profit. Because I was doing the work, all of a sudden this other piece became more clear to me, because you were walking out the journey. And so there's this need to then get going. And get going can look, I mean, let me ask you, do you struggle with consistently putting out content?
When it's not something that comes natural to me, yes. Like, for example, I'm really bad at like Instagram and like videos and like this like sexy photography content, because that's just not me. Like, but when it comes to podcasting, like, dude, I could have a conversation for 3 hours. And so I've been wanting to do a podcast for about 3 years now. And I did the same thing you did, dude. I was like looking at the best mic and like the best style of podcast and the best platforms and all this shit. And then finally I was just like, dude, it's been 2 years. I haven't started anything. And I was scrolling on Facebook and I saw this guy that was like, wanted to start a podcast, can't do it anymore, selling my whole set. I said, cool, I'll take it. Didn't even know what it was in it, because done is better than perfect. And like getting started is better than like analyzing everything. And now content strategy is fairly easy because I top line filter, I do something that comes naturally to me, and then I invest money and I have people that repurpose it in ways that I'm not good at. So that's what's like been really effective for me. You said one thing that caught my attention, or you said a lot of things that caught my attention, but one thing in particular, you said that I hear a lot of people, and I agree with you, saying like, do what you're passionate about. And I call bullshit. Okay. I say, do what you're really good at that solves the largest problem and can create the most profit. That's what I say. Because like, dude, I'm really passionate about snowboarding and surfing, but like, I don't want to work in those industries, because in terms of like massive wealth creation, I just don't see that opportunity unless I'm like one of the top tier athletes, which I'm not going to be. And so like, do I love real estate and every single day? No, but I'm really good at it. And it solves a large problem and it can create massive wealth so that I can fund my dream lifestyle of traveling the world and surfing and snowboarding. So like, I think Mark Cuban said it. He's like, dude, F doing what you're passionate about. Just do what you're really good at that solves the biggest problem, because that'll create the most amount of profit. So then, somebody's like, all right, Josh and Chase, how do I figure out what I'm good at? And let's touch on that. Okay. What do people come to you for advice repeatedly over and over? What do they say? Like, man, you're really good at that. Or that seems like that comes really natural to you. Or you catch yourself watching YouTube videos about it, or you catch yourself reading about it. Combine that with what Josh is saying about keep the train going and keep building that knowledge, and you will discover your strengths and your weaknesses. But you got to keep that train going. I really like how you said that. And you got to constantly be fueling that fire, because if you stop dead in your tracks, boom, 20 years goes by, you're still working at the coffee shop. 20 years goes by, you're still at that job that you hate. So I love that, man. Keep the train going and keep building that knowledge, and you will discover, you will literally stumble over it. And that to me is like the most exciting part about entrepreneurship.
And it's scary. I say inaction breeds anxiety. The 2 years of you wanting to start that podcast, the 2.5 years, the anxiety of not doing that builds up. I think it was Jim Rohn years ago said that discipline weighs ounces and regret weighs tons. And I consider myself a very creative person. Like at the Dave Matthews Show last night, I was dancing my face off for 2.5 straight hours. I love to like muse about my day, go to bed whenever I want, wake up whenever I like. But as my business has grown, and surprisingly, to your point of when you're pushing things forward, I do an incredible amount of change management consulting now, which is something I never, ever, 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 ever thought about doing in my life. But all of a sudden, I am now super pumped about big time software rollouts and how it impacts people who are showing up to do their work every day. And it turns out there's a bit of money to be made in the process. And if I would have never started down this path, I wouldn't be where I am now. And now, as a result of what I do, I spend probably 50 to 60% of my time in my consulting role. And then I'm on the road speaking. Guess what? Josh gets to bed on time. Josh tries to get up between 4 and 4:30. I'm always out of bed by 5:30. And I've got a schedule and a day. I've got routines. And this, you take StrengthsFinder, you look at the bottom three, 2 of my bottom 4 are like routine and habit or something like that. But I've had to learn. And to your point of I'm doing something that allows me to earn a profit. And I think there's like this huge fork in the road. And I love Gary Vee, somebody who's been with me for many years. I read his book, Crush It, when I was at the CPA firm. And the one of, he has some polarizing ideas, but the one thing I love is when he's like, if you're on 4 softball teams and you get to play 3 hours of Xbox a day and you feel like you've hit the jackpot in life, congratulations, you've won. Now, I do wonder, you fast forward, put a couple kids into that scenario, or fast forward to one day you finally want to drive, you want to see what it's like to be behind the wheel of an M5, and maybe you can't quite get there. But do you want to start a business to accumulate massive wealth? Or do you want to start a business to get freedom? And kind of the whole reason why I asked the question about, do you struggle with content, was, and I love that you were like, for 3 years, I've been wanting to do this thing. Every single person knows what that first step is. I was with somebody this weekend, we were having a cigar, and I just was like, he was saying that the software of this launch is being built and it's going to be a while. And so we went to when that software is launched. I said, okay, walk me through a day. I'm going to be going here, meeting this person, building this relationship, doing this thing, opening up this account with this company. And I'm like, and what is the thing that needs to happen today? Because when that software is done, congratulations. Fields of Dreams, the movie, has ruined lives. People think if I build it, they will come. I don't even know if you want to build it first, sell it, and then figure out how to build it. But that's an iterative way that I've learned to best operate. But man, get the activity going as quickly as possible, because you're going to have to discover a brand new part of who you are as a human being. And I will say, unless you are in corporate sales and you have an advantage because you know what it's like to go out and get your teeth kicked in. You know what it's like thinking customer first. But if you go from being an accountant, project manager, engineer, all of a sudden trying to make this jump, like get that. I got to get a podcast started today.
I agree, man. Done is better than perfect. And any course that I've sold, it was so much more effective when I sold it before I created it, because then I created what sold the best. I mean, it's kind of funny how that works, but that's for a whole nother episode. Let's talk about your book, man. Let's dive in. Like, if somebody reads it front to back, is it a long, difficult read? Is it a pretty easy read?
It's short. It's no more than 60 pages. And I mean, this is a guy that took 5 years to get a 4-year degree. So I'm simple.
Hey, me too, brother. Graduate in 4 years. It's like leaving the party at 10, brother.
And I wanted it to be simple. And it just walks you through. It opens up with a story, which is so unusual for like a business book, just opening up this idea that there is a new way to operate. And I'm driven by having fun, but sometimes you're in a meeting and it's not fun. And so I ask these questions that I do believe put somebody in the right frame. And we walk through these 8 true north elements of the employee brain. And when you begin to map those out in the process of the book, man, I'm stepping into beginning formalized research with a research company, because I don't think, yes, I'm sure there are other people that are thinking about this, but I do not see any other research out there that is supporting how a human being can show up and truly become engaged by understanding their work and how they have habits and patterns and triggers to their work. And so in 5 days, I mean, I'm a slow reader and I could probably read the book in about an hour. And we're all busy, and especially people who want to make a change and are feeling stuck. Guess what? A 275-page book is not the answer for you.
Awesome, man. So if I'm getting this correctly, the book is essentially for somebody that wants to figure out, are they in the right training ground? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How can they truly create that path that you're talking about? It helps them with the transition. Am I getting all these correct?
I think the book is around the idea of unleashing your best work. And that can be if you're stuck and you're frustrated and you feel like you've got the gas pedal all the way down, but the wheels are out of alignment. This is going to walk you through, where am I at? Where do I want to go? What am I best at? What am I doing? And who do I want to become? Because listen, There's a success story out there of somebody who wanted to do something and did it immediately and got incredible, unfair results. But for every story of somebody who jumped the moon, there's a story of 1,000 of us, of 10,000 of us who got clear in our mind and were able to detach ourselves from our outcomes and consistently focus on our efforts. And I don't care if you're working in a job, a corporate job where you're starting to make, depending on where you live in the country, $150, $200 a year, that becomes, I'm talking, $150,000, $200,000 a year. That you have a stressful commitment in your life, and you're probably not working just 40 hours a week. So that person needs to unleash their best work so they can compress their tasks down or get wins, so that way they can get home and enjoy their life a little bit more or prevent burnout, just as much as somebody who wants to transition to be an entrepreneur, because momentum breeds momentum. And if I can help you get your best work done at work for work, or at work to get home sooner, or as an entrepreneur, if you need to clear the brainwaves a little bit, I mean, this to me is, every human being is special. When a 3-year-old goes missing in the town, the entire town shuts down. Helicopters come out, police, state police, like news force. Let's say they find that 3-year-old 3 days later. We're going to hear about it. It doesn't matter where that happened. That 3-year-old becomes 33, walks into ABC Corporation, goes missing. Nobody cares about it. That person's just a shithead. They don't add any value to this company. What's wrong with them? Let's get them out of here. You wind back the tape 30 years ago, and that human life had value to the tune of millions of dollars. People would shut down. Why is that life now not important at 33? And I think there's a whole series of maybe societal reasons. We get in our head. But I believe that life at 33, at 53, at 73 is still as valuable as that 3-year-old. And when we can get the feeling of truly unleashing the best part of us, the world feels that. And whether you believe in God, spirit, or nothing, like, the world feels that and begins to respond to us and how it is that we are showing up every day.
Very cool, man. I really like that. And I appreciate you sharing that story. Is the book, do you think it would be effective for employers, like entrepreneurs with teams, to give to their team, to their employees?
Yeah, totally. I mean, if anything, they need to focus more, because you're oftentimes wearing more hats. And so I may need to realize that 20% of my work schedule is my actual role, and these other pieces. So I need that framework. So for example, one of the true north elements is pace. And these are things that a lot of times we don't think about. So let's say somebody on your team killing it. All of a sudden they wake up 2.5 months down the line and they come to you and they're like, I think I want to leave. And you're like, why? What's up? And you're like, I'm just not feeling it. And you're like, well, when did it start? And they don't know how to articulate it. Because most times we think either I love my job or I hate my job. So let's take the thing like one of the things like pace, the pace of work. So in real estate, the pace of work is very high. Oftentimes you're going from place to place, deal to deal. You're feeling the high, you're feeling the momentum, you're on the run. From the morning you leave the house to the time you come home, like maybe you didn't slow down. Like if you didn't have your mobile charger with you, your phone is dead. And you and I love that. But you take the pace of an auditor who knows what their schedule is going to look like for the next 6 months and knows I get to work here and I leave here and I work on this client this week and that client next week. And you take somebody that's their true north, slow, methodical, consistent, and you put them in a pace where you and I thrive in. They're going to wake up and they're going to say, I hate my job, when they don't hate their job. They just, something is out of alignment. And so there's these 8 different elements. And so can somebody who's in a startup use this more than maybe even somebody who is in a more defined role? Totally.
I like that, man. I really do. So we're going to link Josh's book in the show notes on how to access it. But Josh, do you want to go ahead and say maybe the link or where somebody could go? We'll also link it below, of course, in the show notes. But you want to go ahead and announce how somebody can get it?
Yeah, go head on over to employeebrain.com. And if you go to employeebrain.com, it's got a sign up there. And this is something that I believe it's on the frontier of some really exciting ideas and can truly help people get breakthrough. And so employeebrain.com, I'm over at joshschneider.com.
Awesome, man. So I just want to go through, I got a few things I ask every guest at the end of the show, and I want to fire away on those real quick. First, like, what are some resources or people that you follow or guides or some of your favorite books that have really helped you get aligned? And I always ask these in a way that's fitting for you, that have helped you get aligned, that inspire you, that have helped you build your business, that help you serve others. What are some of those go-tos that come to mind for you?
I think one of the biggest way back when was 4 Hour Work Week, because it opened my mind to a whole new way of operating and thinking. Another book that really was something special to me was a book called The Answer by John Assaraf. And I started to focus on my digestion, not my ingestion. Meaning, instead of reading 4 books a month, I read that book over and over and over again for a year. And it just created a different environment inside of me. And right now, my mind is being destroyed by a book called The Big Leap. And it talks all about this upper limit theory, meaning we all have an upper limit theory on how much happiness we can feel, on how much money we should be earning. And at 33 years of age, I want to destroy whatever ceilings are in place in my life so I can continue to go and grow and bring people with me. And it's been some tough digging and some tough work. And I gotta say, I work with the coach, Tommy Baker, and the Resist Average Academy. And he has helped me discover some things that have made a huge difference.
I like that, man. I like how you said it earlier in our conversation as well. Like, don't worry about reading 100 books. Read that one book 100 times. And like, there's that Bruce Lee quote. I don't know how it exactly goes, but I don't fear the man that knows 10,000 kicks, but I fear the man that's done one kick 10,000 times. That's something that I struggle with. I read a book, then I go to another book, then I go to another book. But like lately, I've read a book 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and I get a little piece every single time. And so now I'm focusing on how can I implement more and learn a little bit less. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I like how you brought that up. Josh, where are you going in the future? Like 5 years from now, if these next 5 years went fantastic and we're having another podcast episode, like where are you at 5 years from now where you're looking back and you're like, dude, I destroyed those ceilings. I brought my team along with me and I helped thousands and thousands of people.
So the greatest goal that I have, and it has been one of those things that I've been pushing off, is truly starting a university, and not a normal accredited university. But I say this, is Harvard University an accredited college? Probably is, but nobody cares because they know you went to Harvard. No one cares about what accreditation they have or what proof level, because the marketplace has said, we want those people. And I believe that there is a training available, not about other knowledge, but about how we can get us. And so I don't share it. And now I've really shared it. But I mean, I have this vision of our first graduate, somebody from the first class. You know, they show up and 3 months later, their manager knocks on their door and they're like, Hey, Jen, I got to ask you a question. How did you get to be such a, like, you're so damn good. Like, how did you learn to be this good? And they're just like, oh, I went to, and they taught me everything I know. Where do you think that manager is going to try and find their next hire?
Yep. Have you heard of Lambda School?
Lambda. I have not.
Oh man, I'd have to go on Twitter to figure out who started it, but Lambda School is like well, I don't want to say exactly what you're talking about because I don't know what kind of school you want, but it's essentially I believe it's for the tech field, but it's a university, and their like sole focus or their number one goal as the school is high level job security post grad. And Amazon is that company right now that is hiring the most amount of students that grad from Lambda School. Amazon, like the guy shared a graph the other day and it was like Google, Facebook, Amazon, Twitter, and like Amazon is like knocking at their door trying to hire these graduates. So I wanted to share that with you. It might be something good for you to check out. We always, I believe in modeling, not copying. And so there might be a few things you can model from them that you really like.
I love it. Love it.
All right, Josh. So last two things. Number one, what is the number one most actionable tip that a listener can hear that somebody that's listening right now can take with them to really enhance and you quote, unleash your best work? What's the number one actionable tip besides going to read Josh's book?
I have to believe that it is finding out what your tingly feeling is and then knowing this, that it is the place where you oftentimes add the most value. That's the hidden secret. It's not just the thing that releases the dopamine, the serotonin, the oxytocin that just floods your system that you feel good. It's actually the key to where you can step beyond where you've ever stepped. And that answer is right there. So you've got to find it and you've got to push into it.
I love that, man. Grab that thread and keep pulling. Josh, where can the listeners find out more about you? Like social media, maybe your website?
Yeah, joshschneider.com and ever so inconsistently Instagram _ the Josh Schneider, the Joshua Schneider. I don't even know what it is. Leah can tell you what it is, but we should cut that out. That was ridiculous.
You know what, dude? We might leave that.
Let's leave it
because I love that part. Because, dude,
I'm on Twitter.
There we go. What are you on Twitter?
I don't know. It's something, you try and align them all.
I tell you what, we're going to link all Josh's socials in the show notes. So you can just click it and go follow him. Josh, I really appreciated this. I think that you added a ton of value today. I'm looking forward. I'm going to get that you said, actually, real quick, let's recap. Did you say you were going to offer a free PDF of the book?
Yeah. If you go to employeebrain.com and sign up, you'll get a copy emailed over to you right away.
Cool. I'm going to go ahead and do this right after we end this call. I'm excited about that. Josh, thank you very much, man. I appreciate you, and that was a lot of fun.
Chase, thanks so much for having me.
All right, man. Cheers. Thanks for listening to Life Worth Chasing with me, your host, Chase Maher. If you like the show, smash that subscribe button. Leave me a rate and review. You know what? Screenshot the show, share it on Instagram, tag me at I am Chase Maher, and I'll repost it. There's hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and you've made the decision to listen to mine, which is so cool. I'll see you on the next show.